The rain lashed against the towering spires of St. Patrick's Cathedral like 1,000 accusing fingers, but inside, the air was thick with the scent of lilies and unspoken desperation. I, Magnolia Hayes, 28 and teetering on the edge of ruin, clutched the bouquet of white roses so tightly the thorns bit into my palms, drawing tiny beads of blood that mirrored the ache in my chest. In that moment, as the organ swelled to a crescendo and I turned to face her, Alara Voss, the enigmatic Hollywood siren whose name alone could command boardrooms and box offices, I realized I'd just sold my soul for a signature on a contract, whispering, "I do," to a stranger whose touch felt like both salvation and sabotage. It started 3 weeks earlier, in the dim, oak-paneled boardroom of Hayes Enterprises, where the ghosts of my father's legacy hung heavier than the fog rolling off the Hudson. Dad had built this shipping conglomerate from a single barge on the East River to a fleet that spanned the Atlantic, but his sudden heart attack 6 months ago left me adrift in a sea of red ink and ruthless competitors. Creditors circled like sharks, and the only lifeline was a merger with Voss Global, a media empire run by Alara's iron-fisted aunt. But the aunt, sharp-tongued Vivian Voss, had one non-negotiable demand: a union to seal the deal, a business marriage to project stability and squash the tabloid vultures sniffing around our scandals. "Marry my niece," she'd said over a lunch of chilled lobster at Le Bernardin, her eyes like polished steel. "Alara needs the cover as much as you need the cash. Make it convincing, Magnolia, or watch your legacy sink." I should have walked away. God, I wanted to. But the alternative was folding Hayes Enterprises, laying off the 300 souls who'd toasted my high school graduation with cheap champagne and buried my mother with quiet dignity. So I nodded, the foie gras turning to ash in my mouth, and agreed to meet the woman who'd become my wife on paper. Alara Voss arrived at our first date, a staged dinner at the Polo Bar, like a storm cloud in stilettos, her black sheath dress hugging curves that had graced 1,000 magazine covers. 30 years old, with raven hair that fell like a curtain of midnight and eyes the color of a winter sea, she was everything the headline screamed. The breakout star of indie darlings turned blockbuster queen, the philanthropist who funded queer youth shelters while dodging rumors of her own hidden truths. "Magnolia," she said, extending a hand manicured to perfection, her voice a low, velvety drawl that sent an unwelcome shiver down my spine. "Let's make this believable. For both our sakes." From that night on, our lives tangled in a web of pretense. Public appearances were scripted with the precision of a Sundance script, hand-holding at the Met Gala, where flashbulbs popped like gunfire, and I forced a laugh at her whispered jokes about pretentious donors, quiet date nights at hidden speakeasies in the village, where we'd sip old fashions and trade stories that felt too real, me confessing how Dad's death had hollowed me out, her admitting the weight of a career built on half-truths. Alara was a master at the facade, her arm around my waist possessive yet distant, her kisses for the cameras lingering just long enough to spark headlines like Voss Hayes Nuptials. Love in the fast lane? But in the quiet hours, back in my cramped Upper West Side apartment, before we moved into the Voss penthouse overlooking Central Park, she'd retreat to the guest room, leaving me staring at the ceiling, wondering why her scent, like jasmine and salt air, lingered on the pillows like a promise unkept. The wedding itself was a whirlwind of excess. 500 guests in black tie, a string quartet playing Vivaldi under crystal chandeliers, and Vivian toasting to unbreakable alliances with a flute of Dom Perignon that tasted like bile. Alara stood beside me in a gown of ivory silk that draped like liquid moonlight, her hand cool and steady in mine as we exchanged rings, simple platinum bands engraved with our initials, a detail I'd insisted on for authenticity. "To new beginnings," she murmured, her breath warm against my ear, and for a heartbeat, I believed it. The reception blurred into a haze of canapés and congratulations, but it was the first dance that cracked something open in me. Under the soft glow of Edison bulbs strung across the ballroom, Alara pulled me close, her body fitting against mine with an ease that belied our stranger status. "You're doing beautifully, Mags," she whispered, using the nickname no one else dared, her fingers tracing lazy circles on my back. Almost like you mean it. I wanted to snap back, to remind her this was all a transaction, but her eyes held mine, vulnerable, searching, and I let myself melt into the waltz, the world narrowing to the heat of her palm and the faint scar on her collarbone I glimpsed in a tabloid photo. That night, in the bridal suite at the plaza, the pretense frayed at the edges. We'd agreed on separate beds, but the storm outside mirrored the one brewing inside, thunder rattling the windows as we changed into silk robes. I caught her reflection in the vanity mirror, hesitating, her shoulders tense beneath the terry cloth. "Alara?" My voice was softer than intended, laced with the exhaustion of the day. She turned, crossing the room in 3 strides, and before I could think, her hands were on my arms, pulling me into an embrace that wasn't for show. "I'm sorry," she breathed into my hair, her body trembling. "This isn't fair to you." I pulled back, searching her face, the fine lines of fatigue around her eyes, the way her lips parted as if confessing a sin. "Then why?" I asked, my heart pounding. She hesitated, then kissed my forehead, a gesture so tender it stole my breath. "Because sometimes the lies we tell become the truths we need." We didn't sleep together that night, not in the way the gossip columns would salivate over, but we talked until dawn, curled on the chaise lounge with a bottle of bourbon between us. She spoke of her aunt's empire, built on silencing scandals. I shared the fear of losing the only family I had left in faded photos. By sunrise, as the city stirred below, something shifted, a fragile bridge between us, built on shared silences rather than spotlights. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of duality. By day, we were the power couple du jour, ribbon cuttings at Voss-funded galleries in Chelsea, where Alara's arm around me silenced whispers of her elusive bachelorhood, charity galas at the Waldorf, my hand in hers as we posed for Variety, her smile dazzling yet distant. But in the stolen moments, the late-night drives upstate in her vintage Jag, windows down and wind whipping our hair, or quiet Sundays in the penthouse kitchen where I'd teach her to make my grandmother's pecan pie, flour dusting her perfect nose, Alara began to unravel. She'd laugh, genuine and throaty, at my stories of childhood summers on the Jersey Shore, sandcastles crumbling under Atlantic waves. I'd catch her watching me over morning coffee, her gaze lingering on the curve of my neck, and wonder if the flush on her cheeks was from the steam or something deeper. One evening, after a particularly grueling press junket for her latest film, a gritty drama about forbidden love that hit too close to home, we escaped to a hidden jazz club in Harlem. The air hummed with saxophone notes, smoky and soulful, and as we swayed in the dim corner booth, her hand found mine under the table. "You know," she said, her voice barely above the bass line, "I never thought I'd envy a fictional romance." Her thumb traced my knuckles, sending sparks up my arm. I turned, our faces inches apart, the club's amber light gilding her features. "Is that what this is to you?" "Fiction." The question hung heavy, laced with the hurt I'd buried under layers of performance. She leaned in, her lips brushing mine, not a peck for the paps, but a slow, searching kiss that tasted of bourbon and regret. Time fractured, the world narrowed to the press of her body, the way she sighed into me like I'd been the missing melody all along. When we broke apart, breathless, her eyes shimmered with unshed tears.
"No, Max."
"It's the scariest real thing I've ever known." From there, the lines blurred irrevocably. Our business, nights turned intimate, shared baths in the penthouse tub, bubbles foaming around us as she washed the city grime from my shoulders, her fingers kneading knots I didn't know I carried. We'd make love in the hush of midnight, tentative at first, her exploring the freckles across my chest like a map to buried treasure, me tracing the tattoo on her hip, a delicate script of resilient, in Latin that she'd gotten after her first public coming-out rumor nearly tanked her career. I was 18, she confessed one night, her head on my pillow, moonlight slanting through the blinds. "A kiss at a party, Caught on some asshole's phone. Vivian buried it, but the damage, it lingers. I held her then, our legs entwined, whispering assurances that felt like vows renewed. In those moments, I forgot the contract, the merger papers tucked in a safe deposit box downtown. Alara wasn't the untouchable star. She was the woman who burned toast but devoured my poetry books, who cried during rom-coms and challenged me to midnight chess matches in Washington Square Park, her competitive fire matching my own. But cracks spiderwebbed through our idol. Whispers in the industry grew louder, anonymous tips to TMZ about Alara's lavender marriage, a term that twisted my gut like a knife. At a fundraiser for GLSCN in Soho, an old colleague of mine, a sharp-eyed lawyer named Theo, who'd always nursed a grudge, cornered me by the bar. "Hayes, you really believe this fairy tale? Voss is using you, sweetheart. A beard with benefits to keep the straights happy while she plays on the side." His words slithered in, poison ivy wrapping my resolve. I laughed it off, clinking glasses with donors, but doubt festered. That night, as Alara slept beside me, I scrolled through her phone, a betrayal I hated myself for, finding deleted texts from Vivian. The girl's perfect cover. Keep her close, but remember, it's optics first. My world tilted, the penthouse suddenly a gilded cage. The confrontation came on a crisp October morning, leaves carpeting Central Park like spilled secrets. We'd planned a jog along the reservoir, but I couldn't run from the truth anymore. "Tell me I'm wrong," I demanded, stopping dead on the path, my breath ragged not from exertion but rage. Alara's face drained of color, her ponytail disheveled, sweat beading on her brow. "Mags, it's not. Don't." I cut her off, voice cracking like autumn branches. "You needed a shield for your reputation, someone wholesome and straight-laced to parade around while you—"
What?
"Kept your options open." The words tasted bitter, fueled by hurt that clawed deeper than any thorn. She reached for me, but I stepped back, the joggers blurring into anonymity around us. "It started that way," she admitted, her voice breaking, eyes storm-dark. "Vivian pushed it, said the merger needed a human face, and I was drowning in rumors, fresh off that film where my character was outed and killed off. But you, Magnolia, you weren't just a prop. You woke something in me I thought I'd buried." We stood there, the city pulsing indifferent around us, as she poured out the fragments, the pressure from producers to tone down the edge, the isolation of fame's fishbowl, how my quiet strength, rooted in family loyalty and unyielding heart, had pierced her armor. "I fell for you," she whispered, tears carving tracks down her cheeks. "Hard. And it terrifies me because if this ends, it's not just a failed merger, it's losing the only real thing I've ever had." The fight ebbed, leaving us raw, and in a moment of reckless grace, I pulled her into the shadow of a willow tree, our foreheads touching, breaths mingling. "Then fight for it," I said, my hand on her racing pulse. "No more shields, just us." What followed was a gauntlet of grit and grace. Vivian summoned us to her Tribeca office, a fortress of glass and steel overlooking the glittering chaos of Wall Street. "This little rebellion could tank everything," she snarled, slamming a folder of leaked emails, proof of our arrangement's origins. Alara stood tall beside me, her hand clasped in mine like an anchor. "Then let it," she declared, voice steady as the Hudson's current. "Magnolia isn't a tool, Aunt Viv. She's my wife. And if Voss Global can't handle authenticity, maybe it's time for new leadership." The room crackled with tension, Vivian's face a mask of fury cracking into reluctant respect. We walked out into the biting wind, free but fragile, the merger papers shredded in a ceremony of our own making, Alara feeding them into the office shredder with a grin that lit her from within. Rebuilding wasn't linear, it was a mosaic of missteps and milestones. Therapy sessions in a cozy Gramercy Park office, where we unpacked the baggage, my fear of abandonment echoing Dad's ghost, her terror of erasure born from Hollywood's unforgiving glare. We traveled off-grid, a cabin in the Adirondacks, where snow blanketed the pines and we made snow angels that melted into laughter, her body warm against mine under flannel sheets. Back in the city, we went public on our terms. A joint interview with the Advocate, hands intertwined as Alara spoke of choosing visibility over survival, her words a balm to the queer kids who'd written her fan letters laced with their own hidden aches. The backlash hit hard. Boycotts from conservative sponsors, trolls flooding our feeds with vitriol that pierced like shrapnel. But so did the love, an avalanche of messages from couples who'd hidden for years, now daring to hold hands in daylight. One night, 6 months after the park confrontation, we stood on the Brooklyn Bridge at midnight, the skyline a constellation of our shared scars. Alara had planned it meticulously, a picnic of takeout dim sum and the cheap wine we'd shared on our first real date, fairy lights strung from the railings by friends who'd become family. Magnolia Hazeboss, she said, dropping to one knee on the weathered planks, a velvet box open to reveal a ring. Not platinum, but rose gold etched with cherry blossoms, symbols of fragile beauty enduring. I used you once in the worst way. But every day since, you've been my compass, my fire. Marry me again, not for business, but for the chaos and quiet of us. Tears blurred the city lights as I pulled her up, kissing her with the ferocity of all we'd survived. Yes, I whispered against her lips. 1,000 times yes. In the end, our story wasn't about the empire we saved. Hazeboss thrived, a hybrid of salt and screen conquering new horizons. It was about the humanity we'd reclaimed, the courage to love without contracts, to stand unshielded in a world that demands facades. Alara's next film, a raw tale of 2 women forging a life amid spotlights and storms, earned her an Oscar, but the Real win was ours. Nights tangled in sheets that smelled of home, mornings with coffee and crossword puzzles, the quiet knowledge that we'd chosen each other, scars and all. And as we built that life, brick by vulnerable brick, I knew, sometimes, the stranger at the altar becomes the heartbeat you can't live without. Word count for Part 1, 10/24. The first anniversary of our real vows dawned with the kind of relentless New York summer heat that turned the streets into steam baths, but inside our brownstone in Brooklyn, our sanctuary away from the penthouse glare, Alara had turned the kitchen into a battlefield of batter and berries. Pancakes are an art form, Mags, she insisted, flour dusting her tank top like fresh snow, her hair tied back with one of my scrunchies, the ones dotted with tiny stars from a street fair in Astoria. I leaned against the counter, nursing a mug of black coffee, watching her with that familiar ache of gratitude mixed with the ever-present undercurrent of wonder. How had this woman, once a cipher in silk and spotlights, become the one who burned the edges of crepes but nailed the heart-shaped ones, who knew exactly how to knead the tension from my shoulders after a board meeting gone south? It had been a year of reinvention, each day a deliberate step away from the shadows of our fabricated start. We'd handed the CEO reins of the merged company to a trusted COO, freeing us to chase passions untainted by profit margins. For me, it meant diving into the nonprofit arm, expanding Dad's old community programs into maritime scholarships for underrepresented kids in Red Hook, watching their eyes light up at the water's edge as they learned knots and navigation. Alara threw herself into producing, greenlighting scripts about queer elders in the Castro, trans families navigating the Rust Belt, stories that punched through the industry's glossy veneer. But the real work was internal, the quiet forging of trust. Date nights weren't staged anymore. They were us, picnics in Prospect Park with dog-eared novels, her head in my lap as I read aloud from Audre Lorde, her fingers toying with the ring on my chain, the one from our courthouse redo, simple and silver, engraved with resilient hearts. Yet, ghosts lingered. Vivian, ever the pragmatist, had thawed into an unlikely ally, hosting Sunday suppers at her Hamptons estate where she'd grill Alara on box office projections over grilled quail, but slip me stock tips with a wink that said, "Family's more than blood, kid." Still, the tabloids hadn't forgotten. A fresh round of smears hit after Alara's Oscar win, dredging up our arranged, Origins with headlines like From Contract to Carpetbagger. We weathered it together, barricaded in our brownstone with takeout Thai and a playlist of Nina Simone, her voice a velvet rebellion against the noise. They don't get it, Alara murmured one night, curled against me on the couch, the city hum a distant lullaby. How you make the fake feel eternal. I kissed her temple, tasting salt from unshed tears. Then let's keep proving them wrong. That summer, opportunity knocked in the form of a script Alara couldn't shake, a period drama set in 1950s San Francisco, two women bound by societal chains, but unbound by love. It's us, Mags, she said over breakfast tacos at a hole-in-the-wall in Williamsburg, her eyes alight with that rare, unguarded fire, but with fog and fedoras. I laughed, but the idea burrowed deep, directing my first feature, a labor of legacy. We pitched it to indie backers in Silver Lake, flying out to LA, where the air shimmered with eucalyptus and unspoken histories. The meetings were marathons, power lunches at Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, where producers nodded along to our vision of visceral, unapologetic joy amid the era's cruelties. But it was the nights that sealed it. Strolls along Venice Beach at sunset, her hand in mine as waves lapped at our bare feet, talking futures, adopting a rescue pup, maybe a kid someday through surrogacy, building a library wing in my old Brooklyn school. Back east, production ramped up, and with it, the pressures. Casting calls in a loft studio in Dumbo brought actors with raw talent and raw nerves, their auditions echoing our own early hesitations. Alara played sounding board, pacing the floorboards with me as we debated chemistry reads, her insights sharp as ever from years under Klieg lights. But tension simmered when my ex, Lena, a fiery photographer I'd dated in college, all tattoos and Tempest, reappeared as a location scout. Magnolia Haze, slumming it in indie land, she teased at our first site visit to a weathered wharf in Staten Island, her camera slung low, eyes lingering too long. Alara noticed, of course, her jaw tightening over craft coffee that afternoon. Old flame? She asked later, voice casual but laced with that old vulnerability. I pulled her close in the truck's cab, the ferry horn blaring in the distance. Ancient history. You're mine now and always. We made love in a motel off the Belt Parkway that night, urgent and affirming, her moans mingling with the hum of traffic, reaffirming the choice we'd made. As fall crispened the air, turning Central Park's leaves to flames, the real storm brewed. Not from exes or execs, but from within our circle. Theo, that snake from the fundraiser, had clawed his way onto the board, his concerns about our distraction from duty's veiled barbs at a retreat in the Catskills. Around a roaring fire in a lodge that smelled of pine and privilege, he cornered Alara with whispers of shareholder unrest, his smile oily as the rain-slick roads outside. I overheard, bursting in like a force of nature, my voice echoing off the timber beams. If you have something to say, Theo, say it to both of us. This marriage isn't your punchline. The room hushed, eyes darting, but Alara rose, linking her arm through mine, her chin lifted in defiance. We're not distractions. We're the future. Vivian, surprisingly, backed us, her toasts that night to unbreakable bonds, silencing the doubters with the weight of her legacy. Through it all, our love deepened in the details. Alara learning to sail on a crisp Long Island Sound morning, wind snapping sails as I taught her to tack, her laughter bubbling freer than champagne. Me, stepping into her world at a film festival in Tribeca, red carpet nerves steadied by her hand in mine, whispering, "You've got this, director," as cameras flashed. Holidays brought warmth. Thanksgiving with her eclectic chosen family in a loft in Bushwick, queer elders sharing stories of Stonewall over turkey and tofurkey, their resilience a mirror to ours. Christmas in the brownstone, a tree strung with lights we'd bought at flea markets, gifts unwrapped slowly, for her a leather-bound journal etched with waves, for me, a locket with photos of us, young and unscarred. But winter's chill carried a shadow. Alara's health checkup in January revealed burnout's toll, Adrenal fatigue from years of armor-clad living, her doctor prescribing rest in a voice brooking no argument. "You're not invincible, Voss," the doc said in a Park Avenue office that smelled of antiseptic and affluence. She fought it at first, scripting late into nights, but I coaxed her to the Keys, a rented cottage on Key Largo where palms swayed and the sea whispered absolutions. Days blurred into siesta rhythms, hammocks strung between mangroves, her head on my thigh as I read travelogues aloud, snorkeling in turquoise shallows, her hand pointing to parrotfish darting like confetti. One evening, as bioluminescent waves glowed under a canopy of stars, she broke, sobbing into my shoulder about the fear of fading, of being remembered only as the beard or the star. "I want to be enough," she choked out, salt water mingling with tears. I held her, the ocean our witness. "You are everything, and we'll face the fade together." Spring bloomed with renewal. The film wrapped principal photography in a whirlwind of cherry blossoms in Dumbo, the cast toasting us with Prosecco on the waterfront, the Manhattan skyline a triumphant backdrop. Premieres followed, a sweaty-palmed debut at Cannes, where critics hailed it as a luminous reclamation of hidden histories, Alara's arm around me as applause thundered. Back home, we adopted Luna, a scruffy mutt from a shelter in Queens, her wagging tail a daily reminder of second chances. Life settled into a rhythm, mornings with Alara's coffee runs to the bodega, her returning with bagels and kisses, evenings scripting our own scenes, her in my lap as I edit footage, laughter punctuating the cuts. Yet, the past circled like a hawk. A documentary crew approached, digging into the Voss-Hayes phenomenon, their questions probing our origins with feigned neutrality. "Was it all a PR stunt?" one asked over Zoom from LA. Pixelated face smug. Alara paused the call, turning to me with eyes like polished agate. "Do we tell them?" I considered, the weight of authenticity pressing. Our truth, on our terms. We went rogue, releasing a podcast series ourselves, raw recordings from our brownstone, voices overlapping in vulnerability, me recounting the altar's terror, her the park's confession. Listeners flooded in, shares rippling across the ether, turning scandal into solidarity. Summer circled back, our second anniversary marked not with fanfare, but quiet fireflies in Fire Island, a rented dune house where waves crashed like applause. Alara surprised me with vows renewed on the beach at dawn, barefoot and windswept, her words a poem of perseverance. "You saw through the stranger to the soul, and in your gaze, I found home." We danced under gulls' cries, salt on our skin, the horizon endless. In that moment, I knew. The business had birthed us, but love had made us eternal. As autumn leaves turned the Hudson Valley into a palette of russet and gold, our life together took on the texture of a well-worn novel, pages dog-eared from rereading, margins filled with our annotations of joy and quiet strife. The film, Whispers in the Fog, hit theaters nationwide, opening to lines snaking around blocks in the Village and sold-out screenings in Silver Lake. The critics who once sneered now sang. The New York Times called it a tender gut punch to the heart of hidden love, while Alara's performance as the closeted lounge singer earned whispers of another award season nod. But success's shine couldn't fully eclipse the undercurrents. With acclaim came scrutiny, and Theo's faction on the board resurfaced, pushing a vote to realign priorities at the annual summit in Aspen. We flew out in late October, the Rockies peaks piercing a sky like hammered tin, the conference center a sprawl of glass and granite overlooking snow-dusted pines. By day, panels droned on synergies and spreadsheets, my presentations on sustainable shipping drawing nods from skeptics, Alara's keynotes on inclusive media sparking heated Q&As that left her voice hoarse, but eyes ablaze. Nights, we escaped to hot springs tucked in the hills, steam rising like spirits as we soaked, her legs draped over mine, talking dreams deferred, a vineyard in Napa for her, a sailing school in the Sound for me. "Kids?" she asked one evening, bubbles popping softly, her finger tracing my knee. I smiled, the word warming me like the water. Someday. With you? Absolutely. The vote came on the final morning, a boardroom bathed in alpine light, tension thick as fog. Theo rose, his tie a noose of navy silk, laying out his case. Personal entanglements have diluted focus. Time to professionalize. Murmurs rippled, but Vivian, our unexpected bulwark, countered with data, her voice a scalpel. Projections soaring under our entangled leadership, diversity metrics shattering ceilings. Alara and I sat side by side, hands hidden under the table, our grip a silent pact. When the eyes tipped our way, Theo's face soured like spoiled milk, but we walked out into crisp air, arms linked, the victory tasting of vindication and vanilla lattes from a nearby cafe. Back in Brooklyn, winter wrapped us in its hush. Luna's paws pattered across hardwood as we decorated for the holidays, Alara insisting on a Hanukkah bush hybrid, twinkling menorah lights amid evergreen boughs, her Jewish roots a thread she'd woven more boldly into our tapestry since coming out fully. We hosted a solstice party, the brownstone aglow with queer kin, filmmakers from her circle, shipwrights from mine, elders from the youth centers sharing lakhs and sea shanties. Laughter echoed till midnight, but later, in bed with snow tapping the panes, Alara confessed to fear. What if the spotlight burns us out? I pulled her closer, our breath sinking. Then we dim it. Together. New Year's brought reinvention. Alara greenlit a docuseries on lesbian pioneers, interviewing icons from the Lavender Menace to modern activists over Zoom calls from our kitchen island. I partnered with a queer architect to redesign Red Hook piers into community hubs, cafes with rainbow murals, workshops for trans youth building model ships. But balance tipped when Alara's fatigue resurfaced, manifesting in migraines that felled her during a pitch in Midtown. I canceled my own meetings, bundling her into a cab to our dock, the city a blur of honks and halos. Stress, the diagnosis came, laced with a prescription for yoga and boundaries. We laughed it off over ramen in Kips Bay, but it stuck, a reminder that love's labor demands rest. Spring unfurled with fragile hope. We escaped to Provincetown for a writer's retreat, the Cape's dunes whispering secrets as Alara penned a memoir outline, Veils and Vows, her journey from closet to candor. Mornings, we'd walk the breakwater, gulls wheeling overhead, her arm through mine as she read drafts aloud, voice cracking on the chapter about me, the anchor in my storm. Afternoons dissolved into lazy lovemaking in a loft bed, sea air drifting through gauzy curtains, her touches reverent, mapping freckles like constellations. "You're my plot twist," she'd murmur, lips on my collarbone, and I'd arch into her, whispering back the ways she'd rewritten my ending. June's pride flooded Manhattan with color, parades thumping bass down Fifth Avenue, floats bedecked in sequins and slogans. We marched with GLSEN, Alara on a float mic'd for live streams, her speech a rallying cry. Love isn't a transaction, it's a revolution. I watched from the crowd, heart swelling, until she pulled me up beside her. Our kiss amid confetti, a declaration etched in rainbow light. But joy jarred when a protest splintered nearby, counter-demonstrators hurling slurs that pierced the festivities. Alara shielded a teen volunteer, her voice steady amid chaos. "This is our street too." Later, in a quiet after-party at a rooftop in Hell's Kitchen, she trembled in my arms. "It never ends, does it?" I held her, the skyline a testament.
No.
But neither do we. Summer simmered with milestones. The docuseries premiered at Outfest, earning standing ovations and a distribution deal with Netflix. My sailing school broke ground, keels christened with champagne by kids who'd once dreamed from stoops. We vacationed in Fire Island again, pines sighing as we biked paths lined with beach roses, Luna bounding ahead. Evenings on the deck, fireflies dancing. Alara broached the future. IVF consult? Just thinking. My yes was immediate, a seed planted in fertile ground. Fall's harvest brought harvest of hurts. Theo leaked board memos to Variety, twisting our successes into nepotistic favoritism. The fallout was a media maelstrom. Interviews dodged, allies tested. Vivian called a war room session in her office, maps of PR strategies pinned like battle plans. Fight smart, she advised, but Alara opted for transparency. A presser in Bryant Park, rain misting mics as she laid bare the sabotage, documents in hand. "This isn't about us," she said, my hand and hers visible to all. "It's about integrity." The tide turned. Theo resigned amid scandal, his exit a quiet capitulation. Winter deepened our roots. We started fertility talks with a clinic in Chelsea, ultrasounds, and hopes mingling with the scent of pine. Holidays glowed brighter. Passover Seder with her family, now expanded to include me. Matzo ball soup steaming as stories of Exodus echoed our own. New Year's. We toasted on our stoop, fireworks blooming over the bridge. To chapters unwritten, Alara said, clinking glasses. I kissed her, snowflakes melting on lashes. With you, every page is poetry. As spring teased buds from branches, our story layered on. Love not as fairy tale, but fierce, flawed tapestry, woven from strangers' vows into a lifetime's verse. The rhythm of our third year pulsed like a heartbeat quickened by anticipation, the brownstone's walls now echoing with the patter of tiny feet, not ours yet, but Luna's playful chaos and the laughter of friends who'd become fixtures. Alara's memoir deal landed with a thud of excitement. Auctions in Manhattan high-rises where agents in bespoke suits bid like bridge players, her advance enough to fund a wing at the youth shelter. For the girls like us, she said, signing the contract over dim sum in Chinatown, her eyes misty with the weight of it. I squeezed her hand under the table, the steam from pork buns veiling our smiles, knowing this book would be her unburdening, pages of the girl who'd hidden in plain sight, now stepping fully into light. My own ventures flowered too. The sailing school graduated its first class, a dozen teens launching handmade sloops into the East River, their cheers carrying over the water to where I stood on the dock, Alara filming it all with her vintage Super 8, her whoops louder than the gulls. Proud doesn't cover it, she whispered later, as we watched replays on the couch, popcorn kernels scattering like confetti. But pride mingled with the prick of envy, not bitter, but poignant, when classmates shared baby announcements at a reunion in a loft in Soho. Our time, Alara assured, curling into me, her warmth a promise against the city's chill. IVF began in earnest that spring, a ballet of appointments and injections in the clinic's sterile embrace. Needles pricked optimism into veins, hormones turning moods to mercury, Alara's temper flaring over burnt toast one dawn, mine dissolving into tears at a puppy video the next. We navigated it with humor and hands held tight, post-shot ice cream runs to ample hills, her licking sprinkles from my fingers in the park, laughter bubbling through the ache. The first transfer was a hushed ceremony, embryos from an anonymous donor, our genetic mosaic, followed by 2 weeks of torturous limbo, bed rest on the couch with bad TV and better takeout. The call came on a drizzly Tuesday. Positive. We hooped through the house, Luna barking in confusion, collapsing into each other in a heap of joy and terror. Parents, Alara breathed, hand on my still flat belly. Us. Pregnancy unfolded in waves of wonder and weariness. Morning sick in the brownstone's clawfoot tub, Alara braiding my hair with ginger tea in hand, her stories of her mother's cravings a bridge across generations. Ultrasounds painted pictures in grainy black and white, a heartbeat like Morse code, tiny limbs waving hello. We told Vivian over brunch at Balthazar, her fork pausing mid-oyster, then a rare hug. A Voss legacy, indeed. The news rippled out, friends toasting at a baby shower in the park, rainbow balloons bobbing like dreams made buoyant. But joy's underbelly lurked. Alara's press tour for the memoir clashed with my second trimester swell, her flights to London and Berlin leaving me nesting alone, the crib assembly a solitary puzzle under living room lights. Miss you, she texts from Heathrow, photos of rainy cabs and cream teas, but distance nod. A scare at 20 weeks, Spotting that sent us rushing to the ER in the witching hour, monitors beeping like accusations, left us shaken, huddled in a curtained bay as the doc assured, all's well, but rest. Alara canceled the tour, returning to curl around me in hospital gowns, her apologies whispered into my hair. I won't leave again. Summer's heat wave amplified everything. The baby's kicks like more secrets, Alara's devotion in frozen yogurt runs and foot rubs on the stoop. We weekend in the Hamptons, Vivian's guest house a haven of sea breezes, her surprising us with a nursery mural, whales and waves in soft blues, painted by a local artist with a queer flair. For the little sailor, she gruffed, but her eyes softened. Back in the city, pride took on new layers. We marched with expectant bellies, mine leading, Alara's hand protective, signs reading, queer family rising. The crowds roar a lullaby for the life within. Fall's foliage framed our preparations. Classes on birthing in a yoga studio in Williamsburg, Alara practicing swaddles on Luna till the pup squirmed free. The memoir launched to acclaim, readings in indie bookstores from Powell's in Portland to our local Word in Greenpoint, where fans queued for signatures, sharing their own veils lifted. One night, post-event in a dive bar in the East Village, a fan's hug lingered too long, her whisper, "You're my hero," tipping into something more. Alara pulled back gently but firmly, later venting over beers. Fame's a jealous lover. I nodded, understanding the dance, but it sparked a talk, boundaries, not barriers, reaffirming our core. Winter wove coziness around us. Holiday cards announced baby Hayesboss, spring arrival, the brownstones strung with lights that twinkled like stars over the crib. Alara read bedtime stories to my belly, fables of fierce women, her voice a soothing cadence. New Year's Eve, we stayed in, countdown on TV as confetti rained virtual, her kiss at midnight tasting of champagne and certainty. Our best chapter yet. But labor came early, a stormy March night when contractions hit like thunderclaps. We raced to Mount Sinai, Alara's hand vice tight in mine through the contractions crescendo, her coaching a litany of, "You've got this, warrior." At dawn, as the city stirred gray and gold, our daughter arrived, Eloan, 7 pounds of fury and fragility, her cry piercing the delivery room like a siren's song. Alara cut the cord with trembling hands, tears carving rivers down her cheeks as the nurse placed her on my chest, tiny fists flailing. "She's perfect," I whispered, and in Alara's eyes, I saw the stranger transformed, the woman who'd used me now the mother holding us both. Parenthood was a revelation, raw and radiant. Sleepless nights blurred into days of nursing in rocking chairs by frost-laced windows, Alara's lullabies in Yiddish and English weaving spells. Luna sniffed curiously at the bassinet, then curled guardian at its base. Friends descended with casseroles and coups, Vivian arriving with a silver rattle engraved resilient, her cooing awkward but genuine. We hired a nanny part-time, a soft-spoken dyke from the Bronx with twins of her own, freeing us for stolen naps and walks in the cherry-blossomed park, Eloan bundled against my chest, Alara snapping candids with her phone. Spring's thaw mirrored our bloom. Eloan's first smile came on a picnic blanket in Prospect, dandelions fluffing the air, Alara's gasp of delight worth every bleary dawn. My film earned a streaming nod, watched curled on the couch with baby between us, her gurgles punctuating the credits. Alara's sequel project, a family dramedy, cast queer parents authentically, her passion reignited. Yet challenges crested. Postpartum shadows lengthened for me, hormones crashing like waves, doubts whispering, "Am I enough?" Alara noticed, scheduling therapy tandem with playdates, her presence a buoy. A custody scare with a distant relative, Theo's parting gift, a frivolous claim, rattled us, but lawyers swatted it down, Vivian's resources a shield. Summer sang with Eloan's baptisms, not religious, but communal. Beach days in Coney, her toes in sand, first solids in high chairs smeared with sweet potato. Pride that year, we pushed the stroller down the avenue, rainbow flags fluttering like welcomes. By fall, as leaves swirled, we'd weathered the newborn storm into steady seas. Love expanded, not divided. Our family, a triad unbreakable. Eloan's first birthday dawned with the soft insistence of Brooklyn birdsong, sunlight slanting through gauzy curtains to illuminate a kitchen transformed into a wonderland of pastel balloons and a smash cake frosted in seafoam green. Alara, ever the planner, had outdone herself, streamers dangling from the beams like kelp in a current, a playlist of gentle indie folk humming from the speakers. I watched from the doorway, coffee mug warm in hands, as she knelt on the rug, tickling our daughter's chubby thighs until giggles erupted, pure and piercing. 1 year. From that stormy delivery to this, a toddler with Alara's piercing blues and my auburn curls, already pulling books from shelves and babbling demands in a dialect all her own. Mama, she pointed at me, then at Alara, Mimi. Our hearts melted anew, the word a milestone etched in syrup-smeared smiles. The party swelled with our village, queer aunties from the film Co-op bearing maraca toys, shipyard uncles with wooden boats carved by hand, Vivian arriving fashionably late in a chauffeured Escalade, her arms laden with a velvet bear twice Eloan's size. Spoil her rotten, she declared, plopping into a chair with uncharacteristic gusto, and for hours, the brownstone thrummed, laughter chasing bubbles across the floor, stories of first steps swapped over quiche and mimosas. Alara caught my eye across the chaos, her grin conspiratorial, mouthing, "We did good." Yes, we had. But as the afternoon waned, guests drifting into the park for ice cream, a quiet undercurrent stirred, Eloan's nap fuss turning fretful, her cheeks flushed with the heat of too much joy. That night, as we bathed her in the sink, splashes arcing like mini geysers, a fever crept in, thermometer beeping alarms at 102. We dosed Tylenol with practiced calm, Alara's hand steady on her brow while I paced the hallway, old fears clawing up from the ER memory. "It's just a bug," the pediatrician assured over video call from his Jersey home, but sleep evaded us, tag-teaming rockings in the glider till dawn. By morning, the fever broke, leaving Eloan rosy and ravenous, but it lingered in us, a reminder of fragility's fine line. "We're in this," Alara whispered, collapsing beside me on the bed, Eloan between us like a bridge. All the fevers and firsts. Summer unfurled in a haze of toddler tyranny and tender triumphs. Eloan's words bloomed, boat, pointing at my models on the shelf. "Love you," garbled but gospel, to Alara over bedtime books. We escaped to the vineyard for a week, a borrowed cottage on the bluff where waves narrated our days, sandcastles toppled by tides, Eloan chasing piping plovers with gleeful shrieks. Alara scripted poolside, her laptop balanced on knees, weaving tales of families like ours into rom-coms with bite. I taught Eloan to skip stones, her tiny palm in mine, the plinks echoing our resilient rhythm. Evenings, fireflies winking, we'd grill lobster and dream aloud, expanding the school to include arts residencies, her producing a series on queer parents' unsung labors. Back in the city, fall's curriculum kicked in, Eloan in a co-op playgroup in Cobble Hill, her backpack comically oversized, waving by from Alara's hip as I blew kisses from the stoop. My days filled with grant writings for the peers, now bustling with after-school programs where kids like Eloan learned to rig sails and recite Audrey. But Alara's world pulled her westward again, a pilot for her family series greenlit, table reads in Burbank demanding her presence. 2 weeks, she promised at JFK, kissing us both with airport haste, her scent of citrus and script ink lingering on our scarves. The house echoed without her, nights of solo storytimes, Eloan's Mimi, tugging heartstrings. Video calls bridged the gap, her face pixelated amid craft services, but distance distilled doubts. Was our life too rooted for her starbound soul? She returned with armfuls of souvenirs, tiny director's chairs for Eloan's dolls, a screenplay bound in leather for me, and a proposal. Let's split time. LA summers, Brooklyn roots. We mulled it over walks in the Palisades, Eloan's hand in mine, Alara's arm around us both. As long as we're us, I agreed, and planning began, a pied a terre in Silver Lake, queer neighbors and canyon hikes beckoning. Winter wove holidays into warmth. Hanukkah candles flickered as Alara taught Aloan to spin dreidels, gelt scattering like golden leaves. Christmas brought sledding in the park, her rosy cheeks matching the cardinals in the snow. New Year's. We danced in the living room, Aloan between us, the ball drop of family affair on the screen. Spring's renewal carried a curveball, Aloan's ear infection, a midnight wail sending us to urgent care in a cab slicing rain-slick streets. Antibiotics quelled it, but the scare sparked deeper talks. Healthcare access for queer families, channeling into advocacy. Alara's series wrapped filming, a wrap party streamed where she dedicated it to the mothers who make magic from mayhem. Summer's heat pressed play on our bicoastal trial. We flew west, Aloan wide-eyed at palm fronds, the Silver Lake house a mid-century dream with lemon trees and a yard for chasing. Days blurred into pool dips and producers' lunches, Alara thriving in the creative churn, me guest lecturing at USC on maritime narratives in film. Aloan toddled toward independence, first playground scrapes, her wails soothed by Alara's songs. But homesickness nipped, Brooklyn's stoops missed, the brownstones' creaks a siren call. Balance. We decided over tacos in Echo Park, returning east for fall's embrace. Aloan's second birthday marked growth, a pumpkin patch party upstate, hayrides and cider, her cake smash a whirlwind of orange frosting. 2 years of us, the business marriage a distant footnote, our real union etched in Aloan's every again as we push swings. As leaves turned, so did chapters. Alara's series premiered to Emmy's buzz. My school awarded a grant for expansion. Life. Once a stranger's vow, now a symphony of shared symphonies, harmonious and hard-won. Aloan's third year galloped in on the heels of a Brooklyn blizzard, snowdrifts piling against the brownstone like unspoken stories, waiting to thaw. She woke us at dawn with demands for snowman mama, her voice a clarion call muffled by fleece pajamas. Alara groaned theatrically from under the duvet, but soon we were bundled, mittens and mufflers, trudging to the park where drifts sculpted a lopsided Frosty under her tiny directives. Bigger eyes, Mimi? Laughter steamed the air, cheeks pinched pink, and as Aloan patted his belly, carrot nose in hand, I caught Alara's gaze over her hood, a look that said, "This is the plot we never scripted." 3 years since her birth, and every milestone felt like grace unearned. The way she'd string words into sentences now, I love you to the moon and back, parroted from our bedtime ritual. Her fierce attachment to a stuffed whale named Waverly, bedtime negotiator extraordinaire. Spring tiptoed in with cherry petals carpeting sidewalks, and with it, our bicoastal shuffle settled into sync. Summers in Silver Lake became ritual, Aloan splashing in kiddie pools scented with sunscreen and eucalyptus, Alara directing her series' second season from a home office overlooking the reservoir, scripts strewn like autumn leaves. I'd wrangle playdates with industry kids, their parents trading tales of on-set tantrums over acai bowls at Skirl. But East anchored us. Fall enrollments at the playgroup, where Aloan navigated friendships with the diplomacy of a tiny diplomat, sharing crayons, mediating dull disputes. My peers' project hit stride, workshops buzzing with laughter as teens fused welding torches with watercolors, their creations, hybrid sculptures of anchors and abstracts, dotting the waterfront like beacons. Yet expansion bred exposure. Alara's rising profile drew paparazzi to our gates, lenses leering at Aloan mid-tantrum or us mid-kiss on a coffee run. Family privacy. She snapped at one in a cafe in Los Feliz, shielding our girl with her body, but the shots splashed online. Boss vacation, domestic bliss, or PR ploy? Old wounds reopened. The business marriage specter rearing. We lawyered up, statements issued, but it stung, Aloan asking, "Why mad pictures, mama?" Over bath time bubbles. Alara fielded it with honesty softened. Some people forget we're just us. Therapy resumed, virtual sessions from the brownstone, unpacking fame's fallout on fledglings. Summer's crescendo came with a curve. Alara's series renewed for 3 more, a golden handcuff she weighed over canyon hikes, Alohan's hand in hers, mine swinging free. I want more stories, she confided one dusk, sunset painting the hills vermilion. But not at our cost. We negotiated boundaries, fewer red carpets, more residencies in quieter climes. Fall brought balance. Her guest spots on podcasts about queer parenting, my keynote at a maritime conference in Boston, Alohan tagging along for hotel adventures, her awe at high-rises a mirror to our own early days. Winter holidays layered traditions thicker. We alternated coasts, Thanksgiving in the Hamptons with Vivian's expanded table, now including her beau, a silver-haired professor with a penchant for poetry, Christmas in LA with Alara's film family, a menorah lighting under Hollywood stars. Alohan's wonder at it all. Lights like fireworks outshone the tinsel. New Year's, back home, we toasted with sparkling cider, her sip comically adult, resolutions whispered, more presence, less polish. Spring's renewal whispered of addition. Over brunch at a pâtisserie in the Marais, a Paris getaway, Alohan's first abroad, Eiffel Tower miniatures clutched in fists, we broached baby too.
Brother?
Sister? Alara mused, croissant flakes dusting the tablecloth, her eyes alight. IVF round 2, more assured this time. Transfers timed with Alohan's preschool recitals. Positive again, elation doubled. A boy, scans confirmed, due winter. Alohan patted my belly at announcements. Baby brother inside? Pregnancy's glow intertwined with Alohan's growing independence. Potty triumphs celebrated with park parades, her artwork papering fridges on both coasts. But shadows loomed. A flare-up with Theo's allies, a shareholder suit alleging mismanagement, tied to our lifestyle. Court dates loomed, stress spiking my blood pressure. Alara's nights sleepless script encounters. Vivian marshaled the defense, her boardroom battles a spectacle, but victory came Pyrrhic, settled out of court, reputation singed. They fear us flourishing, Alara said post-hearing, hailing a cab in the financial district's canyon, rain sluicing gutters. I nodded, hand on bump. Let them. We're unbreakable. Summer's heat cradled the swell. Silver Lake swims, Alohan floating rings around me. Alara filming bump diaries for a private reel. Fall's harvest, Alohan's preschool graduation, a circle of folding chairs in a church basement, her diploma a crayon explosion. For years old, already a force, stubborn as her Mimi, empathetic as her mama. Labor hit on a December eve, snow dusting the brownstone like confectioner's sugar. Alohan stayed with Vivian, her be brave, mama, a talisman as we labored through contractions tied. Caspian arrived at midnight, a howl harmonizing with the city's hush, his dark tufts Alara's echo, eyes folding open to our world. Alohan met him at dawn, finger tracing his cheek. My brother. The brownstone expanded, 2 cribs now, nights a relay of feeds and fairy tales. Parenting duo deepened us. Alohan's big sister bossiness charmed, Caspian's coups a counterpoint. We leaned on our net, nannies rotating coasts, co-ops for sibling synergy. Alara's series swept awards, her acceptance for the family that fuels me, a spotlight on us. Spring with babes in tow, park picnics, Alohan stories to Caspian of when I was little like you. Life, once solitary, now a chorus, harmonious, hectic, holy. Caspian's first summer etched itself in sensory snapshots. The salty tang of Coney Island boardwalk fries clutched in chubby fists, Alohan's whoops on the Wonder Wheel as it crested against a cotton candy sky, Alara and I trading slings and sunscreen on a blanket strewn with sand toys. 5 for Alohan, 0 for Cass, milestones stacking like Jenga, precarious and precious. The brownstone brimmed, toys tumbling from baskets, laughter ricocheting off walls we'd painted seafoam to match the nursery mural. Alara's producing empire hummed remotely, her laptop a constant on the kitchen island, greenlighting projects that spotlighted families like ours, a doc on bicoastal queer parenting, interviews laced with our own anecdotes. Fall's back-to-school buzz amplified everything. Eloan started kindergarten in a progressive school in Fort Greene, her backpack a rainbow explosion, first day tears mine not hers as she marched in with chin high. Caspian babbled from his carrier, teething on my lanyard during drop-offs. My days at the piers stretched, now a full community center, classes blending STEM with storytelling, kids launching podcasts on ocean myths. But admin sprawled, grants grinding against burnout, Alara noticing over dinner. Delegate, love. You're supermom, not superhuman. Her words, gentle prod, led to hiring an assistant, a trans marine biologist with a poet's eye, freeing afternoons for family forts in the living room, Caspian gnawing block towers while Eloan narrated epic sieges. Winter holidays layered on legacies. We road tripped to Vivian's in the Poconos, a cabin aglow with strung lights, Eloan and Cass tobogganing down hills as snow powdered their lashes. Vivian, softened by grandkids' gravity, read the Polar Express with unpracticed warmth, her voice cracking on faith. Back home, New Year's pajamas party, kids in footies, us in sweats, countdown with hot cocoa mustaches. Spring's thaw brought bloom and bruise. Alara's doc premiered at Tribeca, raw reels of our chaos, diaper dashes, sibling squabbles, earning laughs and nods for normalizing the not normal. But a panel Q&A turned tense, a critic probing the authenticity of your union. Echoes of old smears. Alara fielded with fire. Love's authentic when it's lived, not litigated. I squeezed her hand under the table, pride swelling. Yet privately, it rankled. Eloan overhearing playground whispers about celebrity moms, her questions at bedtime. Are we famous weird? We countered with story circles, inviting her class for peer tours, normalizing our normal. Summer circuit, Silver Lake Redux, now with kitty yoga and canyon echo yells. Caspian crawled circuits around the lemon tree, Eloan directing shows with neighborhood tots. Alara wrapped a feature on sibling bonds, casting local kids, her direction infused with our home's harmony. But a heat wave sparked crisis. Cass's Rosella rash sending us to an ER in Pasadena, monitors beeping under fluorescent glare. False alarm, but it crystallized. Health first, we vowed, trimming travel, prioritizing coast's calm. Fall deepened roots. Eloan's school play, her as a plucky pirate, drew a crowd to the auditorium, her bow a spotlight steel. Caspian's first steps wobbled across the kitchen, into Alara's arms, her whoop echoing. 6 for Eloan, 1 for Cass, birthdays back-to-back, a joint bash at the piers, boats bobbing as cake cut. Winter's hush held a pivot. My center's expansion pitch to city council, nerves jangling in wood-paneled chambers downtown. Approval came, funding flowing, but with it oversight, budgets balanced on knives' edges. Alara's awards season loomed, her gown fittings a whirlwind, but she pulled me aside post-run-through. Come with. As my date, not arm candy. Red carpet jitters aside, it felt right, us, unapologetic. Holidays heartened, Passover in the brownstone, Eloan asking 4 questions with dramatic flair, Cass banging spoons like cymbals. Easter egg hunts in the park, rain turning them to muddy quests. Spring's vigor. Eloan's lost tooth, Tooth Fairy's debut with a note from Waverly the Whale. Caspian's babbles blooming to mama, pointing at me over breakfast. Alara's feature test screened stellar, buzz building to fall release. Summer song. Vineyard return, now with cousins, Vivian's beau's grandkids, Sandcastles collaborative, Fireside S. Moray's sticky with stories. Life's ledger, joys outweighing jangles, our family a fleet sailing steady. By fall, as equinox even days, we stood stronger, strangers once, now soulmates scripting eternity. Aloan's seventh year crashed in like a rogue wave, full of foam and fury. School mornings, a negotiation of braids and backpacks, her arguments for just one more chapter, before lights out testing our resolve. Caspian, too and tempestuous, echoed her energy, his no, a thunderclap over spilled Cheerios. The brownstone, once a sanctuary, felt like a stage for domestic dramedy, but Alara and I played it tag team, her luring casts with ukulele serenades, me mediating Aloan's homework wars with pirate metaphors from the play. 7 and 2, ages of assertion, their personalities crystallizing like sea glass. Aloan's empathy wrapped in eloquence, Caspian's curiosity a constant quest, dismantling toys to fix with tape. Fall's foliage framed family firsts. Aloan's soccer team in Prospect Park, cleats muddying weekends, her goals celebrated with high fives and hot cider. Caspian's toddler art class in Dumbo, finger paints smeared into masterpieces we framed crookedly. My center thrived, now hosting film nights on the docks, Alara curating reels of ocean odysseys, kids munching popcorn under stars. But admin avalanches buried me. Late nights at the desk drew Alara's gentle shove. Hire help, or I'll stage an intervention with Pi. Her humor, lifeline. Winter's weave, holidays hybrid. Hanukkah in Silver Lake, Sufganiat dusted with LA sun, Aloan lighting candles with solemn focus. Christmas back east, tree trimming marathons with Cass helping by stringing tinsel into knots. New Year's, kids asleep, we slow danced in the kitchen, her cheek on my shoulder, still my favorite plot. Spring spark, Aloan science fair volcano, baking soda eruptions in the garage, Caspian's assistants adding glitter bombs. Alara's feature premiered at South by Southwest, Austin's vibe electric, red dirt roads and rowdy afterparties, our family crashing the scene, Aloan charming directors with What's Your Movie About? Reviews raved, a heartfelt hymn to sibling alchemy. Summer sojourn, Vineyard Idol, now with kayaks and kiddie cruise, Aloan captaining, Cass as mascot. Alara scouted locations for a new project, a queer family road trip flick, inspiring our own mini-adventure, cross-country drive in a rented RV, Badlands to Big Sur, pit stops at diners where pancakes became lore. Aloan's journal entries, illustrated with crayons, saw dinosaurs and rocks. Mama kissed Mimi under stars. Fall's flourish, school open houses, Caspian's preschool debut with separation wails that wrenched. 8 for Aloan, 3 for Cass, birthdays nautical, a yacht rental on the Hudson, cake on deck as gulls wheeled. Winter's warmth, advocacy amped, Alara testifying in D.C. on media representation, me on education equity, kids in tow for field trips to the Capitol. Holidays heartful, Vivian's Poconos now annual, her reading the night before Christmas with theatrical flair. Spring surge, Aloan's lost library book crisis, solved with a group story time at the center. Caspian's first full sentences, love you big. Summer symphony, LA immersion, Aloan in theater camp, Cass in surf lessons, waves whooshing his giggles. Alara's road trip film greenlit, our RV tales fodder. By fall, as harvests hummed, our saga swelled, love's ledger boundless, chapters cascading into forever.